Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the channel. Today I will be doing a mod on my 2021 Camaro ZL1, which is parked here behind me. And this hopefully will be a quick video. And what I'll be doing is installing this third brake light by Seequenced. And pretty much what they do is they take a OEM third brake light. I believe they do now offer modifications to aftermarket brake lights for a little bit less money. But this one is the OEM housing. And what they did is they actually cut the housing open, as you can see here, and they modify something with the internals or the circuitry to program the lights to do different effects. And when you purchase it, you can pick from a number of effects for when you're stopping, and then a number of effects for a show mode, which is when you're parked and you want to do some kind of a fancy effect. The one I picked out here is actually going to do a swell effect on braking, so it'll be kind of like a pulsing, kind of like this. And then show mode is going to be doing like an inverted Knight Rider effect, which I thought looked pretty cool. Now, installing these is pretty simple. There's no difference installing this compared to just an OEM third brake light. There is a difference. You can see here, this little wire hanging out the back. And if you take a look at the OEM one, identical, except no wire. And you can see there is no cut seam in the housing itself. So that can tell you that this one has been modified. Now, this wire right here is needs to be attached to a 12-volt power source. And for me, I'm going to pretty much wire it through like a little switch here that I'll mount in the trunk. And I can turn it on and off of show mode to show my inverted Knight Rider effect, you know, when I'm parked, or if I want to show it off at a car show or whatever. But most of the time, you'll probably be running it in just the normal mode. And you probably want to pick an effect that's not super oddly distracting. So I just picked a swell effect. I thought that looked pretty cool for braking. And so this is pretty much, you know, what you receive. You get some stickers in the box. And really, it looks like it has pretty much the OEM style adhesive here. This should be a waterproof adhesive. I did notice mine was kind of crushed when I got it, and some of this backing is peeling off. So hopefully it's not affecting the adhesion of when I attach this to my trunk. Here we are at the trunk. Here is the OEM third brake light. You can tell my trunk is not the OEM trunk. I do have an Anderson composite carbon fiber trunk here with the integrated spoiler. You can check out the video for that up there somewhere. And this actually will show me replacing or actually installing a third brake light on the Anderson composite trunk. I was never real happy with how this turned out. The third brake light actually protrudes a little bit too far. It's not quite flush to the trunk here. So I'm actually we're gonna go ahead and remove the OEM third brake light, and off camera, I'm gonna have to open up this opening just a little bit more with a Dremel. Don't have to worry about that if you're doing this third brake light install on the OEM trunk, or a trunk that is fitted properly, and it should just be, you know, removable and replaced. But go ahead and we'll open this up, and we'll get a closer look at everything underneath the trunk. Here we are, trunk is open, and you can see the underside of the trunk. If you have an OEM trunk, of course, it'll look a little bit different than my carbon fiber trunk here, but this main section that we're gonna be working with today is going to be the same. Really, the only thing I can point out is normally on the OEM trunk, there'll be a clip here. This trunk did not have a hole drilled for that. So of course there's no clip here, but these other clips are gonna be the same, and you're gonna wanna use an interior trim tool of some sort, and you're gonna want to go ahead and pop these off. And once these are removed, we go ahead and we unclip this little, I guess you could say trunk latch mechanism cover. That'll pop up, and we can actually then pull this inner liner off. I'm gonna go ahead and do that now, and then we will go ahead and look underneath the trunk, and then you can actually access the third brake light. Here we have it. The inner liner piece has been removed clips have been popped out. You always might want some extra clips just if you happen to damage them, but these all came out pretty good. And these items right here just stay in place. You don't have to worry about messing with these. And as you can see, here's the latch mechanism. And then you can access the third brake light up through this little opening right here. Trying to give you a good look here. It's kind of hard to see, but you do have a wiring harness that kind of works its way up here. This you need to detach this from the third brake light. This is the third brake light wiring harness. And also, can't really see in here, but you'll notice there are 4 mechanisms. I can show you that real quick on my spare OEM housing unit right here. There's 4 Torx screws, and if you loosen these up, it may be easier to remove this third brake light from the trunk. You also may be able to just push it through from the back side. What I like to do is we're going to go ahead and put some painter's tape all the way around this third brake light so we don't risk scratching the trunk while we're trying to remove the third brake light. And then what I like to do is I actually like to apply some pressure on the inside while applying some removal pressure on the outside to dislodge this third brake light. You don't really need to use any heat. You could to help with the adhesive. I don't think I used any. The last time I did this, I'm not going to use any heat this time. I don't want to damage my carbon fiber trunk. That was a kind of a nightmare. I have damaged this trunk before when I was dremeling out this opening for the third brake light. But as if you look here, you can kind of see my complaint where it's not flush. I'm going to be fixing that off camera, hopefully opening this up a little bit more so it snaps in and it's nice and flush against the trunk. You don't have to worry about that most likely. But yeah, so you're going to go ahead and you're going to either loosen up these Torx bits, all 4 of them. You should be able to access the outside one through these holes, 2 main ones through the main hole. Then you're going to give a little pressure push on here while you pry it over here. So I'm going to go ahead and work on this and hopefully not damage anything. Go ahead and I'm going to try to remove this without removing the screws. We'll see if it comes loose. Oh, there it goes. And hopefully you can see this, but here is the third brake light. Here is the switch, or the plug, sorry. I was mistaken. This is actually to clip the wires in place. It looks like you actually need to push way down here on the clip and squeeze it in, and then it should pop loose. There we go. And you can see here, this is the OEM one. All the adhesive came off and is still on the bumper. You're gonna wanna go ahead and remove that the best way that you can so you have a nice clean surface to work with. Cleaned up all the gunk around where the adhesive was for the third brake light. I believe I'm gonna go with this little toggle switch here, show mode on, show mode off, and I have a couple little T clamps. I'll put links for all this stuff in the description. And then my plan is to, here's for reference, when this is installed, there's kind of a little bit of a pocket with some room here and here. It looks like a little bit here, but I kind of want to tuck it a little bit. So I'm thinking about drilling and having the switch kind of come out, just sit right here, snapped into place, which should give it enough room so it's not hitting the trunk itself. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drill. I'm going to match the size of this, maybe a little bit smaller. I'm going to drill and then I'm going to pop this in, and then we'll look at getting this thing wired up. Went ahead and used a 3/4, drilled a hole into this trunk liner piece here, and then the switch this actually snaps in is held on by the little clamp pieces. Kind of just make sure you tuck a little bit of fabric in there. It's different than mounting to like a piece of plastic or something like that. but it sits there pretty nice. So that should be on, should light up when it's on, and I guess turn off when the show mode is disabled. Here it is, just plugged in. The show mode is not connected. And go ahead and hit the brake, hold it down. Go ahead and let go. One thing I did notice is a little scuffed up on the light, because these are, I guess, reused cores that people ship in. And I have a little bit of a pretty good scratch on this light over here. Kind of annoying, but you know, it is what it is, I guess. Go ahead and you want to feed this plug through third brake light opening. And we're going to go ahead and bring the trunk down like that with the plug protruding out of the third brake light hole here. Go ahead and we'll plug it in. And as you saw, we already tested it. The brake mode works fine. Of course, this is labeled up, but it's also labeled on the top here. It actually will say top. I want to feed the show mode wire back through here as well. And make sure you test fit. I've already test fit with another OEM one. So if you have your old one and you removed it from your OEM trunk, this should fit fine. I did do some extra dremeling here to open this up a little bit more. So this should sit a little bit more flush. I couldn't get it perfect, but you know, it should be good enough. Now, you want to go ahead and lift off this backing tape. That was another thing with this, where my backing tape was kind of half peeled off in a number of spots. I don't know if it got banged up in shipping. That's maybe also how I got the scratch on the lens, which is kind of irritating, but you know, it is what it is. And you can just go ahead and slot it in, and then it should just snap into place. See, I think it's an issue with this trunk. It does not sit perfectly flush with this trunk. But this, maybe it's just the shape of the trunk, but it sticks out further than it should. So you just want to go ahead and hold it in place and then wait a few minutes for it to adhere. Third brake light is installed into the trunk. I held it down for a few minutes just to make sure the adhesive would fully adhere, and it's pretty good. It's not perfectly flush on the top here. I think it's because of just the curvature of this Anderson composite trunk versus the OEM one. It still protrudes a little bit out, but there is no gap actually where you can see into the trunk. Water shouldn't be able to get in there because the adhesive pad is still there. So I think the Dremel work I did to this specific trunk helped it a little bit more to get a little bit better of a fit than it was prior to removing my last third brake light. And everything's wired up other than the show mode, which we'll get underneath here, and we'll start getting that set up. I went ahead and I soldered on some extension wires to the switch. The wires on it are really short and kind of really kind of a lower gauge than what I really need for a 12 volt, kind of a low power setup like this. And you just need some channel, or I guess combination pliers, whatever like this. You don't want them on the tightest setting because you will crush these things. And just go ahead and you'll fit it through the little hole they have here. And then it just clamps down. And you should hear it kind of snap. That, just make sure you don't crush it. Okay, mistakes were made. Do not tap off a third brake light. It is not I didn't read the, I guess I misread the label. It has to be on a constant 12 volt, even if the car is off. So this 12 volt is only applied when the car is on. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove these T-taps. I'm gonna leave the show thing in here. Notice I taped this up with some Tesla tape. And I went ahead and tested the latch wiring harness, which is this one. It looks like ground is the center pin here, and then this one, and the car is off, and it's getting 12 volts from here and here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap this harness, untap this harness. So sorry for taking you down the rabbit hole of stupidity. hopefully this will be the actual correct solution. Okay, my second option to tap off of the trunk latch mechanism. I tested this, I got 12 volts. I tapped into it, and as soon as I plugged this back in, it no longer worked. So I guess when this is unplugged, it fails to, I guess, a constant 12 volts to this plug until it's plugged back in. And then it only gets 12 volts when you actually push the button to release trunk. So that's another failed attempt at a constant 12 volts. So what I did is I pulled out the trunk floor, removed my mat, removed the flooring, which is actually just lifts right up. You should get presented with this, at least on the ZL1, 2SS, I think the 1SS, and the other ones are different, so you'll have to find your own 12 volt. But I went ahead and got my meter and I tested some connections here off of the fuse block. Normally I would use a fuse tap. I don't have any, and I just want to get this thing done before I go on a trip here shortly. So I tested some of these blocks and I found the second one up that has a wire in there. I got 12 volts from it with the car completely powered off. So I'm just doing a quick test. And it's kind of, everything's kind of balanced, but look, lights up. And it's doing the show mode. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my tap that I was attempting up here, leaving the ground one right here so I don't have to run 2 wires. And then I'm going to solder this up. I'm going to then make it look nice and run it with this other wire. I'm going to drop it through a gap right here, back by the battery, and then probably out the floor. And I'm just going to tap off of this wire right here with the fuse, with my little, not fuse tap, but my T-tap. And then I'm going to call that good, at least for now. Now, if you have a fuse tap, definitely go that route. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up, solder this up, run the wire, and then we're going to go ahead and swing back and hopefully show mode is actually working this time. I ran the power side wire of the switch, and this will be underneath the trim, so I didn't really fully wrap it. But once I got down here where it's actually going to pass, where you can see it in the trunk, I fully wrapped it with the Tesla tape. Then I ran the wire up underneath the interior trim, dropped it back here. This will be covered with the battery thing, but it can tuck away. And then I dropped it out the bottom and then T-tapped it off of that second wire up. You can see it lights up. And it's in show mode, which is the inverted Night Rider. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the fuse box lid back on here, get the trunk stuff put back together, and then we'll go ahead and get this under tray trim of the trunk reinstalled. I have the trunk interior stuff put together. See, here is the wiring. Go ahead and we're gonna get this reinstalled. Hopefully without too much trouble. And just make sure you pass there we go, the emergency release through. Line everything up. And you can start popping in your clips. And don't forget your latch mechanism cover. And it has little clips here that should snap into the trim. Like that. All right, so here's my show switch. So if you take a look, and we'll kind of reposition camera a little bit here. And okay, here it is off. Hit my hidden show switch. And there is the Night Rider effect. Well, it's actually, this is the inverted Night Rider. Looks pretty cool. And switch that off. And we're gonna go ahead and we'll go ahead and test the braking and make sure everything is still working. Now that I put everything together, I did 3 different wiring attempts before I came with this one. Car's running. I wonder what happens if I turn on show mode while it's running. Oh, it still does the show mode even if the car is running and no brake is applied. And then we'll go ahead and we'll switch it off. Show mode is off. Go ahead and get my daughter in the driver's seat and we'll do some brake checks. All right, to have my daughter in the driver's seat, we're gonna do some quick braking test just to make sure everything's working. So go ahead and hold it down. And this is the swell mode where it swells out, I think for a few seconds, then it'll actually go solid red. Go ahead and let go. All right, tap it once. All right, so you can see the effect. And once again, I'm curious what happens if she hits it while it's doing a show mode. Go ahead and hit it now. Okay, it'll override show mode. Let go. And it goes right back to show mode. So that's pretty cool. It'll override it. And yeah, it looks pretty sweet. So overall, pretty impressed with it. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe everything down and then we'll come back here and close this video out. All right, that wraps it up. Sorry for kind of going down a few different rabbit holes, figuring out the show mode. You know, they do sell a kit where you run it to a cigarette lighter, I believe, up in the front of your car, and you'll have the switch up there. I wanted to kind of keep all that hidden out of the way, just like I did with my dash cam, my radar detector. I kind of like everything clean. You know, there's one thing I would have changed would be using a fuse tap instead of a T-tap into that fuse box in the trunk, but you know, kind of working with what I got. And I'm on a time limit here. I'm heading out of town for a week tomorrow and won't be able to knock out any videos in that time. So anyways, this is the Seequenced third brake light. Overall, it looks pretty sweet. Here we got show mode going on. Car's completely shut off. It still runs fine off that constant 12 volt power source. Install is easy. It's significantly harder with a carbon fiber trunk like what I'm running here, just because of the fitment of the third brake light. That's with the OEM one or the Seequenced using the OEM housing. So yeah, as always, feel free to subscribe, like, follow, comment, let me know what else you'd like to see. I got a ton more carbon fiber videos coming when I have time, some more garage modification videos and stuff on my Exploder. And pretty much I got a ton of content coming. It's just all about getting time and knocking them out. So thanks for sticking around and have a good one. Peace. And a constant 12, it just does the braking mode. So when I went ahead and I moved it to the trunk release. How the